Hello and welcome to Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
How you doing, Dad?
I'm not so bad now, Steve. Had a bit of a wobble last week, as you know, health-wise, but back on track now. That's the main thing.
Good, good. Well, it worked out because I was in Cornwall as well, busy down there. So it was a busy old week. So I was quite happy to skip a week. Obviously, would rather you not be unwell, but it worked out anyway. So
oh yes, I wouldn't really have been able to do it last week at all. That situation, but all's well now, and
good.
fighting fit for Christmas. Looking forward to it.
Perfect. Yeah. It's this is going to be our kind of Christmas episode. A couple of days before Christmas. Are you all set, Dad? You've had a lot of building works going on and getting the place ready for visitors.
Well, we've had, as people know, we've had quite a few months now of disruption, but things have evened off nicely. We've got everything now ready for Christmas on the ground floor. Not quite finished. It's going to be probably the end of January before we're actually out of the woods completely. But certainly we've got the family coming round. You're coming round on Boxing Day, and it's going to have a great time. So yes, it's very nice now. We've got a nice area, and it's going to do us proud from now onwards. Very pleased.
Brilliant. I notice that the Santa has gone. Eagle-eyed viewers
will
the Santa is missing in the background.
Well, he's found a new home on the door. In fact, like a reef that goes on the door. Well, this is on the inside of the door, not the outside. Otherwise, he'll get nicked, especially as we're close onto the road. But he's facing inwards. But he looks good. He looks really good.
Brilliant.
And, so he's in his rightful place now.
Excellent. Well, the last time we spoke, you were midway through a horse picture, and I expect everyone's quite keen. They've been waiting long enough to see the finished result. So I'm going to put that up on screen now. Now, you finished that just before you were before you got unwell. So do you remember it? What do you remember of this one? Because it was a good week or so ago.
Oh yes. I was delighted with it. It came up very well, and we did talk about it at the time, but there wasn't much to talk about. Just an ear, and didn't have very much going for it. But I was talking about the background, I think, last time. But people can see that now. How that has now turned out to be the perfect choice, really, for that particular animal, and I was delighted with it.
Yeah, it's starting to become a little bit of a staple, a signature for the last few pictures of those dark backgrounds to really make the subject pop. I want to talk about the intricacy of is it the bridle? What's this?
The bridle. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And all of the intricacy of because you wouldn't normally. So when in the past, when you've had animals like a dog and you've had dog collars, you've chosen either to not include them or simplify them so that they don't detract. This still looks like you've included quite a lot of detail on this, and obviously that's got colour in it as well, like blues and things. How did that? Did you deliberately? You think I'm going to put this in? How did those colours and that intricacy affect your decisions on this painting?
Well, the bridle was part of the attraction to me. As I say, I didn't really want the embellishments, like the beads, and I was leaving those off. And I did originally on the drawing. I did leave them off. But when I did the ear, and I think I mentioned this last time, it didn't look quite right. And I thought, well, I've got to put something there. Well, okay, I might as well put the beads in if I'm going to put them in. And as soon as I did that, I thought, no, that actually did look good. So I left them in, and I carried on with the rest of the adornments of the bridle. I think it made a nice change and something different. And also, it gave me an opportunity of showing how You don't have to be that detailed, although when you look at that you think it probably is very detailed. It's not that detailed. If you blow that up and look at it in close-up, there isn't a great deal of detail there, but it's what you imply. And I did leave one of the reins off from the original because it was just surplus to requirements. I had to put one in, on the other side of the head, but I enjoyed doing that, and I think it made the picture as far as I was concerned, because up to now I haven't done that with the picture, but I did enjoy that side of it. I always do when you've got all the collars and things that I've done with animals. I've always enjoyed doing it. It breaks away from the fur and the eyes and the more natural part of the animal, and it can be detrimental if you're not careful. You've got to once you make a decision like that, you've got to go for it. But I've been very lucky, really, that it always seems to have paid off.
It's interesting understanding your decisions and the balance that you strike between it not taking away from the subject but then still adding something. Like, I agree with you. I think that those embellishments add a little bit more character to the horse and the picture and the owner of the horse and all of those kind of things. It paints a little bit more of a depth behind the picture. But yeah, it's interesting to know when it becomes too much, like you said, taking one of the reins out, if deciding a little bit but not too much, not a really fancy collar that is going to take away from the subject or distract from it, but then just enough to keep the character of the picture in. It's interesting.
Yes, I agree. And there was just enough in that to make it attractive for me. I mean, and the other thing is that if you're doing a picture like I was doing there for people to copy and to see how the bridle and the bit and the silver bits are done, then it's a good idea to show people how it's done if they want to do it themselves. But I enjoy doing it. The thing is, everything you do, really, everything I do, I want to do it. I don't do it for the sake of it. It's because, I really enjoy doing this. And I think you're doing it for that reason too. And it comes off because of that reason, because you enjoy doing it. So therefore it pays off. But if I did another horse, it probably wouldn't have a bridle on it, I don't know. It depends how you feel at the time. But I've got another picture which I'm anticipating doing, and this is really, it's a black dog, German Shepherd. It's a black dog on a black background. You can't see it then. No, that's exactly it. It's I'm tempted to do it because it's a challenge for me, but it'll be a real shadow picture. This will be. And so I find things like that I enjoy doing, and I think I like to do things that would be attractive for somebody else to say, oh gosh, I really like to see how that's done. Gosh, can I do it myself? And of course you can. So we'll have to wait and see on that one.
It's not going to be a shadow. Is it going to be a shadow picture in terms of the colours you're going to use, or are you going to branch out with other colours?
No. It will have colour. It will have colour.
Right.
I think you've got to have colour in a situation like that. Otherwise, it would be too dull. To be fair, I think it's got to have a little bit of colour. But the only colour you've got really is in the eye. The eye will be the colour, and there's a sort of a very rich, reddy brown eye. So that really will stand out. But it'd be fun to do. And once again, I'm trying to find pictures, and I'm doing a lot of searching through Pixabay and so on for pictures that are different, and something that I think people I've got an awful lot of pictures now under our belt, and I think there's no real problem in whatever people want, whether it's animal or even portraits. There's plenty there. So I'm now looking for things that are a bit different, a bit unusual, for me as well as for the public.
Excellent. We'll look forward to seeing that. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about it maybe next week on next week's show. But for now, that is the horse. So I hope everyone's looking forward to watching that class, and we'll get that up as soon as we can. Moving on to another topic of conversation, we had an email come through from David, and it was fascinating. It prompted us to have a good chat about it. So I thought that we'd talk about it on this podcast. So I'm going to read David's email. Hi, Stephen. Currently, I'm not a member, but considering joining again. I have a few questions that are one of the reasons that I stopped in the past. I've done 28 pastel pencil / pan pastel projects over the past few years. Most of them were from your father's classes. A few are from other instructors out there, and a few are ones that I went out on my own and created. I have also dabbled with other mediums, but I keep returning to working with pastels. There is something about it that is really satisfying. I know I can always learn more from your father and his incredible talent and teaching. But what I felt was getting me off of taking more of his classes was that feeling that I was doing a colour by numbers class. I'm sorry, that is the best way I can explain it. I know it is not really that, but sometimes it feels like that. So I wondered what you, or preferably your father, would say to a student when he or she thinks that way, when they're learning any of the mediums he teaches, preferably as they are progressing with the mediums. Of course, the goal is to go on my own, and I'm happy to do what I do, and be happy with what I do. But since I've jumped in and out of pastel work, I need to go back to some basics and then move on to some more advanced stuff. But I still feel your father is the best to learn from, and I don't want to be thinking that I'm creating something that is really not my work because of the thought of the colour by number factor. I hope that makes sense. David. So we have replied to David, and we've got another email back, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I thought it was so interesting that David brings that up. And I suppose it is, your classes are paint by numbers in terms of the pencils have colours, and you're saying, now do this colour, now do that colour. But as I explained to David, and hopefully you can elaborate on this, Dad, is that by showing people those build-ups, you're instilling them with the confidence for them to make those choices and understand those choices when they go in to do their own work. So do you want to just elaborate on that as well?
Yes, well, when I first started out teaching people, I thought, well, how am I going to structure something, especially if I'm teaching a group of people, which it always was. In my classes, I had 14 people. So you have to have a system that's going to produce results. Otherwise, people will give up straight away. As I'm sure that perhaps David has already experienced this with other artists. They say, "Oh, will you do it? I'll show you where you're going wrong." And then that's no good. You've got to have something structure there. And the line drawings that I produce and people follow religiously, very often, only helps them really when it comes to proportions. That's all. And that's the only help they get, because even though I've got and give all the colours, I don't really give it how I mix them, how I get from one particular shade to another shade. Now, with pencils, it's easy because you've got the raw colour. But if you had to mix paint, watercolour, oil, acrylic, if you have to mix it, that's a whole different ball game. And the other problem with that is that once you mix one colour and then you've got to repeat it again, you've got to do the same mixture, and that's not easy to do. So all of these are problems that I had when I first started, or anticipated before when I first started. So I adopted the system that I've gone and has been very, very successful over the last 30 odd years. And I think that people really my original intention was not to train artists, was to train people or give people an opportunity to enter into the leisure industry in art that was attainable. And that has been proved the case. But you will get, and I'm sure there's going to be more people around who will say, well, yeah, that's all right, but I really want to do my own thing. Absolutely fine. Do your own thing. What I've given people is the techniques, really, to actually structure their own pictures. And they can then do, and we know that they do. They don't all follow me, do they? They do their own pick. We've seen so many examples. Oh, I did this dog, or I did that portrait, and so on. Nothing to do with me. So what they've done, they've picked up the information that I've given them on the classes, used that information for their own benefit, and that's exactly what I expect. And so I think that David's got a point, and if he felt that it was, sort of like painting by numbers, well, I actually started with painting by numbers. You wouldn't believe that, but I did years and years and years ago, before I even thought about doing art. I did buy a painting by numbers, and I must admit I didn't enjoy it very much because I was being told what to do. But there's nothing wrong with that, and I've never decried it if that's what people like. But I've gone on to bigger and better things simply because I've done the homework, really. And of course, when you're teaching people, you teach yourself, and this is what I've done. So I think I probably go along with his train of thought. But there's so much more, I think, to the blending of colours, and we know that from a fact that people have a lot of problems in sorting out base colours. What colour do I put under here to make that colour? And I think our classes give them that information.
Yeah, I said that in my reply from both of us that. If for any reason someone didn't want to follow the exact structure of one of the classes, but simply use it as an archive of thousands and thousands of techniques and color combinations, I don't even know how to put a number on it, of combinations of color, and as a resource, I know for a fact some of our members do this. They're working on a picture and they think, how do I get this color? They'll jump to a class that has a similar combination, pick out that part of the video, replicate it, and go, right, got it. Now I know how to do that, and they'll go and do it on their own work. So, the idea is obviously to follow those classes, repeat those techniques, learn those techniques, because they will go in the more you do. And as you've said time and time again on this podcast, is that you gain that intuitiveness that comes with picking colours and reaching for combinations. You were saying to me before we started recording is that the classes teach that colour. They teach how to use colour. And I'm just going to move on to David's reply because we can talk about this as well. David, thanks for the reply. And he asks, I have another question that mixes with my last, and it is about being an artist. Because I said that the work that our students do, we feel is their work. They are doing the work. It might be copying your picture, but they have done the work. It is their work. It's why there's no restrictions on people selling their work, because we feel that's their picture. But David says, you clarified the work that we create is ours, but this is more about the actual drawing that I am sure most transfer to do the project. This has always made me wonder, if I'm not drawing it, am I an artist? I know this is a vast and debatable question, but many others might wonder about this too. My drawing skills aren't good enough to free draw some of the projects, so I think this can fit in with the other question. if you talk about it on the podcast, how much of an artist are we if we don't draw the actual subject? This is a huge debatable,
Oh yes,
big,
absolutely.
same old question. We've talked about it before with square drawing. Does that make you an artist? Are you cheating? No, we don't feel that's the case. We can touch upon that, but give your thoughts, Dad, initially on that.
Oh, well, it went through my mind originally. I must admit that. Well, wait a minute. If people are transferring it across, are they? If they're not really drawing it, well, this is where square drawing came in. This is why I invented square drawing in the first place, so that you could have a look at proportions and draw them yourself. Now, you could argue, well, that's still cheating. No, it's not cheating at all. Not if you're square drawing, because you are actually doing the drawing, following a grid. Constable did it. A lot of the great artists did it. I've got proof of that because I've got one of Constable's pictures that he actually did a grid, and he worked from that grid. It was a landscape, admittedly. So if a great artist can do it, well, there's nothing wrong with it, is there? So that put my mind at rest that by people wanting to do it themselves, they can use the square drawing. I show it on the square drawing system. I show I did it and how people can do that. And I think then if you did that, then I think, yes, you could call yourself an artist, of course. But that's only one aspect of it all. That is getting proportions right. And that is important because if you were going to do a picture of somebody and you were commissioned to do that picture and you got an eye wrong or a nose wrong or something wrong, are they going to really like that picture? Not really. They're going to blame you for it. Oh, you didn't do a very good job of that, did you? So I think that generally speaking, the square drawing does take that away. And I think anybody doing square drawing and not transferring through, yes, you could call yourself an artist because there's only part of it all. The rest of it is colour tones, the interpretation, the intuitive side that comes through, especially on portrait work. As a whole new, another area, not just proportions. But I think proportioning is probably the most important thing if you're going to do portrait work or even animals. You've got to be careful there that you don't get an eye wrong or a nose in the wrong place. So that's how I would view it anyway. And do you want to call yourself an artist or do you want to call yourself somebody who can draw and paint reasonably well and produce work that you're proud of?
Very good question. And also, as we've spoke about before in the past, the drawing, especially the outline drawings that people will see you produce, are very basic. Establishing that detail through the pastel pencils and the colour and the fur and all of that comes with a lot of skill, as you say. Just proportioning out a basic outline is a small part of it. Representing that animal or that picture as best as you can comes through the colour and that application. So one could argue that is the hardest thing to achieve. Freehand, especially to be able to draw freehand is just. You've really got to be quite gifted to draw perfectly freehand without any aids.
There's not many professional artists that actually do that, Steve. I was told that once. Most professional artists use some kind of drawing aid because they want to get it right. They don't want to get it wrong. They want to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And even as the square drawing grids, you've said this before, as a way of. Even if you do want to draw freehand, you can use square drawing to check those proportions. Just check them before you start.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
But I do feel like the colour and working through the colour, that is the harder part, I think, because it's representing and understanding that it feels like there's a lot more depth to that, understanding that colour, looking at a picture, seeing those colours, understanding that application and the techniques on top. There's a whole lot more to it. So I hope that's interesting to people out there. Thank you, David, for the prompt for a great discussion. As always, if you have your thoughts, drop them in the comments below. If you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, send us an email if you want to add to that, and maybe we'll talk about it again in the future. But I hope, David, and for others, that's been interesting to you guys. Lovely. Okay. I don't know if you can hear that. There's a baby in the other room.
Yes, I can.
I don't know if it's coming out on the podcast. But yeah, as I said last time, I was going to go indoors because it's just too chilly in that cabin. So I've been indoors today working. But that's great. So thanks, Dad, for offering all of that insight and showing off your work.
All right.
We would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. We will be hopefully back next week for a New Year's episode. We have our plans to be back. But for now, we would love to wish you all a Merry Christmas and thank you all for watching and listening. So I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley. Enjoy your week.
Enjoy your week.
Or should it be enjoy your Christmas? Maybe.
Should we do it again? Enjoy your Christmas. Ready? Should we do it again? Okay. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Enjoy your Christmas.
You're going to bring Eloise back, are you? Hello, my little love. Oh, I'll just pull that mic around.
Hello.
Hey.
Just change it all.